name is Nelson Aspen, and I was so honored to be asked by the fellows at We Love Soaps to do a guest interview, kind of a nostalgia tour, the Nelson Aspen Where Are They Now tour. And my book, Hollywood Insider Exposed, features a little chat with my good friend Thom Racina, who, if you don't know him, you certainly know his work, and tonight you're going to get a chance to meet him here in my little New York apartment. So this is Thom Racina.
I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to Thom Racina. Now, if you don't know Thom Racina personally, then you know his work, because he was the guy that gave us Luke and Laura's wedding. I seem to remember there was a deep freeze around that same time that year, and appearance by one Helena Cassadine.
That's right.
He's written for just about every soap opera. You have some connection to him, I'm sure, with any daytime show you love. And if you like Brad Pitt, he's got stories about Brad Pitt as well. So Thom,
hello.
Hello, darling.
I'll tell you about Deep Freeze. I'll tell you about.
Tell us about the Deep Freeze.
Let me tell you about how it happened, because people love this story. I didn't know soap operas from anything, you know, and Jackie Smith at ABC found me because I had come in with mouse ears on my head once to her office at Warner Brothers, and years later she remembered me, and she called me in and she said, do you know it? Do you want to write a soap opera? And I said, huh, what? You know, I saw Dark Shadows once or twice to see the doorknobs come off, because it was the last live soap. And so she said, I want you to meet with Gloria Monty. She's a gal who runs a show called General Hospital. I said, okay, fine. So I'd go have a free breakfast at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
And she knew you as a writer.
She knew me as a writer. She had read the books. I'd done a lot of dirty books. I was the happy hooker back in the 70s. There was this enormous best-selling book called The Happy Hooker, and 9 of them after that, and I wrote them all. I was the sleazy little Midwestern horny teenager.
Perfect for daytime television.
Who wrote porn for years, but it was better than writing. I mean, going to McDonald's and working, I could write.
Yeah.
I could actually write, even though it was crap, you know. But anyway, so I meet with Gloria, and she's spitting food at me across the table. And Leah Lehman used to say to me, she used to say, listen, she said, I know you make more money than I do, but you deserve it, because you have to be her friend, and you have to sit across from her at the table, because she gets so wound up in telling these stories. She would literally spit out all the food, and you leave the table at dinner with her in a restaurant, and you'd be going like this with the bread and the pasta sauce. Anyway, Gloria said to me, we've got this head writer, and she muttered, that bitch. And I thought, oh, I should have taken a lesson that's how they think about head writers, you know. And she said, we've got something called The Ice Princess, and it's starting to air, and we don't know what that is. And she said, the bitch won't tell us. And she said, there's going to be a writer's strike, and I'll be damned if we're going to have this show die. And she said, I need a long-term story written now, because you can't write it once the strike starts,
right,
that we can play through the strike. And I said, gee, and she said, what kind of idea? And I just happened to have a hardcover novel of mine from 2 years before that I brought her as a gift, called The Great Los Angeles Blizzard, about a snowstorm that hits LA. We stole that to be Port Charles. That's how the whole Luke and Laura thing happened, and we got up to the wedding and all of it, and I wrote this long-term story that was like 700 pages. I mean, detailed scenes, which they did all through the strike, and I sat home watching this thing going, no, that's not how I meant it. No, that's all wrong. But anyway, you know.
And that eventually became your book, Deep Freeze.
Yeah, and then it also, I rewrote it years ago. I've got a bunch of books out there. I've got 7 novels, thrillers out there that I've done since I left Daytime 10 years ago or whatever.
But Deep Freeze, the Ice Princess storyline, from my recollection, that was really the first really outrageous storyline. We're so used to that now. Every show, you've got either Reva being cloned, or you've got talking dolls on Passions. Every show now has the whack factor. That was the first, as far as I can remember.
I got to give it to Gloria for saying yes to me. When I said, oh, how about this? It was just because my book is sitting there, and I thought, okay, we'll put snow on Port Charles, you know? She's going to say no. And she looked at this thing and went, I like you. And I went, huh, what? And the rest is history. And I heard just last week up in Connecticut with Susie Horgan, who was doing One Life to Live at that time. She said to me, you don't know how we kept trying to find something that we could do that would be as big that would be pop history, the way the Ice Princess story and the Luke and Laura story played out. She said all the other shows were sitting there going, what can we do? What can we do? They're doing this, they're doing that. Why can't we do the same? And I really never heard that from inside the trenches, how enamored they were of what we had done and how they were trying to, fight us and for the ratings.
Did that then effectively launch your career in daytime?
Sure,
because you've worked for umpteen shows
I
since
had
then.
no career before that. I'd done Family, a show that was on at night.
Seda Thompson, Christy McNichol,
Jim Broderick, and I got Christy stories.
Oh well, who doesn't?
My
Anybody who's had their hair done in Beverly Hills has Christy
stories. Yeah.
But
one day I came home, never mind. But
did they expect? Does Thom
it.
Racina come with an Ice Princess storyline? Like, was that your calling card?
Well, it was funny because when I got fired, and it happened.
Fired from General Hospital?
Yes.
Okay.
Gloria, 3 years there, I love you, darling, we're family. And then the next day, suddenly, you're on the street and I cried. I'd never been fired before in my life.
Welcome to daytime.
Yeah. I didn't even know what it was like. And I thought, I'll never work again. What am I going to do? I've been spending all the money. And I get a call from Days of Our Lives. And I said, who? Ken Corday? Who? Oh, yes, that's right. You produced it. And it was like, we'll give you more money because you got fired. And I thought, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, that makes sense.
I always heard that people were fired and then, they had to go find another job, probably for less money. So it was a rude awakening how this business works. And was the expectation there? I'm not sure. I think they knew that they could get some good stories out of me. And I tried to give them that.
So you go over to Salem. But now you've got. I'm assuming you hadn't been a Days of Our Lives fan. Do you have
seen it?
How much do you? I mean, because I know from working in daytime, some writers come in and they don't care about the history. They just have
You
new.
gotta care. You gotta care. You gotta.
How'd you research it?
You
How
gotta
did
learn.
you
You
learn?
talk to all the fans. You listen to the fans. You hear those stories about your grandmother and your mother and who they loved and how these years have played out. You over there, yes. and then you read the history of what's happened, and then you read the long-term story they did for the last year, and then you read the outlines for the last 6 months, and then you read the scripts for the last few weeks, and by the time you're there, you're so inundated with it that I think you get it. I mean, you should, but it seems like a lot of head writers don't, like you said. They just come in and do whatever they want without any reverence for the history of that show.
But is it the inattention to history that has destroyed our shows?
I don't know. I mean,
your most recent thing was with Young and the Restless, and that actually has had a resurgence of history.
And
Tell me about that.
I love what they're doing because they're holding on to the older characters. They're understanding. They're not going to get the youth. They're not going to get people in their 20s or their teens or their 30s. They're going to hold. All you can do, the best you can do now, is hold on to the people you've got. You're not going to gain new viewers.
Really?
And I really believe it. And they tend to be in their 50s and 60s. But if you can hold on to them, you might have another 10 years of these shows being on the air. Otherwise, people say it could be 5-7 years and they'll all be gone.
But I was indoctrinated by my grandma. Why can't the grandma who's watching today indoctrinate
because
someone
the world
else?
has changed. It is so different. We had 4 or 5 channels back then. People didn't work the way they do today. We didn't have Blackberries and iPhones. The world is so different. People don't want to take the time. They don't have the capacity to sit for an hour. I mean, I used to find it hard sometimes to watch my own shows. Like an hour out of my life? Oh my God. I would get on the treadmill. I would do anything to do something while I was watching this because I felt like
you hooked a lot of rugs,
I had to be
Tom.
chained out.
You hooked a lot of rugs.
Yeah.
Tom and I met on Another World when you were writing at Another World.
Yes, right, yeah.
Where, just go ahead, shamelessly rattle off your resume because you have done so many shows. Where did Another World
It was
fit?
General Hospital, and then Days, and then Another World, and then I'm trying to remember. Generations, Santa Barbara. Generations came next, yes. And then Santa Barbara. Okay, and then
who needs Google? We've got Damon right off camera.
Right. Thank you very much. I can't even remember my own history. And I did this awful show in Toronto for a year called Family Passions. That was so bad. They aired it at 3 a.m. But I said that what they should have done is packaged it in discs and done it as how not to write a soap opera on every level. It would have made money, So I did that in there somewhere too. But I had enough. I got to a point where I said, okay, they hire me because I'm a good storyteller, and then they never let me tell a story. And you can do it, and you're getting a lot of money. Granted, I always said that you're thrown in a cage and it's locked, and they throw red meat in once a day and feed you, and you spit out pages, and that's the deal. But you get a big, healthy paycheck at the end of the week. So that's not such a bad deal. But you get to a point in your life where you want to do something else, or you want to feel more creative. And my whole thing about going back to novels, which I gave up after I did The Great LA Blizzard, and then suddenly I was a whore for the money in the soap career, I wanted to go back to publishing. I wanted to go back to writing novels, because you have one editor. You don't have that team of people telling you this is shit and this is lousy and this is bad. And
you just said they won't let you. In your experience as a writer, who are they?
Network.
It's the network.
Procter & Gamble, anybody that had a voice. So few of them were really creative people. They're in this.
Well, they're not creative. I mean,
yeah.
they're not creative people. They're business people.
A few have been, exactly. So why not hire the creative people, let them write, leave them alone, and you take the credit for finding them, and your show's ratings go up. Never quite got it why they all had to justify their salaries by inputting all these ideas and story changes and stuff, which were a lot of times ludicrous.
Well, now that you're not working in daytime at the moment, do you follow any of the shows? Do you keep up with soap opera news? What do you think about As the World Turns? I mean, how does the soap world affect you?
You couldn't pay me to write a soap opera? No, that's not entirely true. I will look now and then, but I keep up with it more than I do watch anything. I mean, I really, I have to admit, I've never really been a voracious soap watcher. I will hear something about a storyline, or I know an actress.
Yeah, you've got friends. You're connected to the industry.
You want to see him. I want to see Colleen and whatever. As World Turns, speaking of Colleen, it was inevitable. It's just there's going to be another one biting the dust every 2 years, and I think it's this changed world. They don't make money.
I had an interesting text from Mary Kay Adams, India von Hawkeye, Neil on As the World Turns, and she said, they're falling like dominoes. To which my reply was, we were so lucky to work in daytime back when it was fun. And now it's this atmosphere of fear and dread and downsizing.
That's right.
And what are some of your most extravagant memories? Like, what were some of the, oh my God, pinch me moments that you had as a soap writer?
The biggest pinch me moment was having a writer's meeting on General Hospital where we were clearly leading Luke and Laura to the altar. And I've told the story 100 times, but I'll tell it again, because it is my favorite moment ever in my entire career. And we went into the writer's conference room off Gloria's office, and there's a red phone in the corner to
Batman.
the Pope, And it never rang when we were in a conference because they cut off Jackie Smith calling in. That was the phone to New York. And the phone rings in the middle, and we're arguing about marrying. I'm saying, no, we shouldn't marry them. And I had already talked about this publicly, that I kind of felt we should hold off another year. We have Scotty come in and, it'll go on another year long. Because they get boring when they get married.
Yeah, so, pace.
Yeah.
That's what they don't have anymore, pace. You nice, slow pace.
True, yeah. Anyway, the phone rings. Gloria picks it up, and she's like, who's this? And it wasn't Jackie, obviously. And she's listening to a little bitty voice we could hear screaming at her, and she can't get a word in edgewise. And Gloria could outtalk anybody. She spits while she eats, so she could. And she hands it. She says, talk to the guy who's responsible. And she hands the phone to me. I said, who is? And she just sat back and she kind of grinned. I hear this woman say, I'll be damned if you're not giving me a wedding. You don't know how many movie sets I shut down in the last 3 years to watch Luke and Laura at 3 o'clock, god damn it. And I went, sounds like Elizabeth Taylor. She said, it is Elizabeth Taylor. And she was my favorite movie star. And I'm on the phone with her. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. And so she said to me, I've got to have this wedding. You're not going to marry them. You're going to marry them. I want this wedding. And I said, we'll do it if you come, as a joke. 3 days later, Jackie Smith called me, and she calls me and says, well, Elizabeth Taylor just signed to do Luke and Laura's wedding. We got to do it. We got to do the wedding. Because we had pretty much decided in that meeting after Liz hung up, that we're not going to marry them. So we had a reverse, we did it all for her. We gave her that wedding. I saw her a few years ago at this one, it's Streisand's goodbye concert or whatever. She was sitting in front of me in a wheelchair, and I tapped her on the shoulder, and I said, you probably don't remember me. And she looked at me and she said, General Hospital. Oh, how sweet. And then I told her, and she said, you mean it was my goddamn fault? It was so cute. But anyway, that was the moment, because my mother had also, Elizabeth Taylor was her favorite, and I introduced them, and it was a wonderful experience.
I wonder how she feels about Luke marrying Tracy Quarterman. But now, so then did you specifically create the Helena Cassadine?
I had to do it alone. I did it alone because Gloria said, you got to come up with something for her. And I said, aha, the Widow Cassadine with the, and what, 20 years later, they were still playing the curse,
Well, what do you think about that now? What do you think about Constance Towers, who's phenomenal? I mean, she'll always be Anna.
Anna
and the King to me.
She's a great actress, and Elizabeth couldn't do it for. I mean, I would have rather had her continue it, but she had better fish to fry. But it was a great moment. The whole General Hospital thing was great because like I said, it was like writing pop history. It wasn't like doing a show.
Oh yeah.
The cover of Newsweek and Time and People and I mean, it was heady. We even had the FBI come and talk to us about car bombs. And we kind of went, what? Well, you never know, these crazed fans, because we were getting, Jackie Zeman was getting death threats, and Tony had to have bodyguards coming to the studio. I mean, it was a really heady time for that show.
We just can't even fathom the state of daytime now, seeing what that was like then.
No.
There were some Friends and Lovers?
Friends and Lovers.
What was that?
Boy, they're I think of the song.
Speaking of pop culture trivia.
I think of the song on Days of Gloria Loring. Friends and Lovers was Shane and Kimberly's song. We got that right. But there was a show that Ken Corday wanted to do that I wrote the Bible for and wrote 5 scripts for, and they even got to a point where they were going to cast a kind of pilot for a new daytime serial, and then it all fell apart. And it was something I don't know if it was a network, if it was Fox or 20th Century Fox at the time, and TriStar, whatever it was that ran the show, but it all fell apart. But I got paid. So
that's all that matters. But
that's really true.
Now, with the advent of these web soaps, and we're seeing a lot of daytime big stars like Martha Byrne and Crystal, they're going out and they're starting this. Is that ultimately going to prove to be a futile vanity project, or can it? I
don't know. All of last year, I toyed with this with Patch and Kayla with Steve and what's her name?
Mary Beth.
Mary Beth. I was going to say Mary Ann. No, that's wrong. She's my friend.
Ginger.
Right. And they really wanted to do something like this, and we heard interest from a lot of other people. And Sally Sussman and I were going to do it, and we finally got to a point where we both said, do we really want to work this hard for nothing? And don't we have other... I can write another book, you know, and I'd rather spend the time doing that than doing something. It's for the 18-year-olds, it's for the 22-year-olds who are looking to build a career, and I've been there and done that. So we both backed away from it. I don't know where that's going. I think it's going to be a long time before it makes money, I think. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about it. I said before, I'm a dinosaur. I come from the old school.
Well, speaking of old school, I sort of teased that you have a Brad Pitt related soap opera connection.
Yeah.
Now, how does Brad Pitt, other than the soap opera of his life, which I get to cover on a daily basis, how does Brad Pitt fall into the world of soaps?
I put him on another world.
How did you know Brad Pitt?
I put up a little sign at Screen Actors Guild and said, needed an actor to be a personal assistant, walk the dog when I needed it, and back in that day, no email, drive the scripts to the studio, and so this kid shows up, and he's cute and full of energy, and he says, I'm an actor, and of course they all are in LA, so I hire him. And
skim the pool.
Yeah, skim the pool, and he did. And we became very close. He moved in with me. He lived in the maid's room and had his own life, and yet we became good buddies. And my parents loved him. They became the new family that he had away from Missouri. Anyway, I came home from the studio early one day, and he was doing
Which show were you writing for?
Days. But just at the end of my Days career, it must have been in the last few months, because I saw him doing a scene with some girl in my living room, and
acting scene.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, I saw him do a few other scenes in various parts of the house.
Oh, I saw that Thelma and Louise. I saw that one. Okay.
Yeah, but that was a new body. When I saw Thelma and Louise, I said, where did he get that body? Did he go to Sears Roebuck and buy it? Because it was like, he never looked like that, when I knew him. In any case, he was very good. I thought, this kid's got talent. So I went to another world a few months later, and I come to New York, and I settle in here, and I say to them, I've got a guy. I got this terrific kid. He can play 18, even though he's 22, 3, and I wouldn't give him a 2-year story. And I wrote a 2-year story for him. They brought him to New York, shot him. He did the one day on Another World. And then we sat down with the idiots around the table, the Procter & Gamble and the, what is it, NBC, ABC? NBC. And one after another, he can't act, he's not good looking, Maggie Dupree says he's got bad skin. And it's like, give me a break. And finally, at the end, I turned to John Weitzel and I said, okay, all right, give me this. And he said, oh, I know he's your buddy. He said, but I got to tell you, Tom, this kid sucks. He said, he'll never be an actor. Tell him to go be a plumber. I had to go home and tell him. And of course, it's a better story when you don't know the punchline, who it is. And he cried, and I hugged him. And I said, listen, asshole. I said, you are now going to be able to audition. Before, you didn't have a SAG card or a Screen Actors Guild, or after all that stuff. And I said, now you got it. You did one day and you got it. So this is my gift to you. Now go out and prove me right that I believed in you. And he did, but the end of the story is, he would have been, had they liked him, he would have been a soap star forever.
Well, that's good. I've
Lord
talked
works
before.
in mysterious
Jennifer
ways.
Aniston auditioned for Search for Tomorrow and didn't get it, so it was a blessing.
Yeah.
And John Weitzel, it's odd because I worked with him on 2 different shows, and he was a very good judge of talent most of the time.
Yeah, he was.
He found Anne Heche.
That's why I thought
he found Anne Heche.
Right, and we fought for her. The writers loved her. Nobody else at the network didn't want her, and we loved her, even though she's crazy.
She's crazy as a bedbug, but she's the most talented gal on big screen or small screen. Joanna Going was another one he found. He found her as well.
But Brad did something for me. People say to me, oh, you gave him his start and he was, he doesn't talk to you anymore. I said, somebody that big, that kind of star, people come into each other's lives for a certain time. Sometimes it's a lifetime. Other times it's for certain periods, and you do not mourn that. You take that and say, this was a wonderful thing. And he kept telling me, you've got to write a movie. You've got to write another book. And he wanted to play a psychopath. And I wrote my book, Snow Angel, which got me out of daytime and got me back to, I've got 1 million copies in print. And it was because of Brad. He pushed me to do that book, and every time I talked it out with him, I got a new idea, and he was like eager to play it. Now he's too big a star to do it, But he gave me that kind of renewed interest in going back to writing novels. So he did something for me that was great.
Let's talk about the As the World Turns cancellation. You have some friends connected with the show. One of my oldest and dearest friends is Marcia McCabe, who's married to Chris Galtman, the executive producer of the show. He has said on the record that he has no plans to get all nostalgic in the remaining months of the show. He's not going to start bringing back nostalgic moments, he's going to stick with his current plan to do whatever it is he's going to do. If you were writing As the World Turns and knew, okay, we got to finish shooting next June,
that's a tough
how would you
one.
treat it?
That's a tough one. We did that both on Santa Barbara, which I closed, and with Pam Long, and also on Generations, which was really tough because we created it, Sally and I together.
I love Generations.
We wrote every episode of the 2 years, and to end a show is a really tough thing. You got to take a lot of stuff into account, and I think you got to trust your instincts, really. But you want to give the fans what they want. I don't believe that you just do whatever you like and screw them and, or leave them hanging. I think you owe something to these people who've been there for all those years, and I would make it a little heartwarming and kind of wonderful, as long as it's real. That's the other thing, that real soap operas, how
This
real
from the Ice
Hello.
Princess.
Right.
Okay.
Right. A little snow there would, a little science fiction wouldn't hurt. No, but something that touches your heart. It's all about the love stories. That's what it's all about. Luke and Laura, that's what it was about. It wasn't about snow or saving the world or any of that crap. It was about the love story, and all that was just the setting that we threw it into, and that's what it's that's where As a World Turns should have, the love story should come together and really grab you.
And
easy for me to say.
Well, easy for me to say too, because I'm thinking of the Hughes family. I want to, I want to see that kind of nostalgia. But now, as we wrap things up, give me just free associate. Let me be your therapist. No shoulds, my friend Damon tells me. Your favorite thing, your favorite people in daytime. Just free associate and tell me who you love. Who are your very favorite people? And if you have somebody you really hate, now's your chance to get that off your chest too. Who do you love? Who do you love?
Of writers, Susie Horgan, who's become my partner in Nighttime Pilot We've Got, and a bunch of other stuff. And we didn't really know each other when we were doing the shows, and she won an Emmy and I didn't, and it pisses me off still. But we are dear and close, and she's my second family in Connecticut. Sally Sussman. Marina, who is just one of the best, one of the most talented people, and also a dear friend. I have a lot of respect for Ken Corday. A lot of people trash him and don't respect him, and I always thought he had a lot more going on, a lot more on the ball than a lot of people said. I remember Jean Passanante. I didn't know her well, but I liked her. I still would if I talked to her, but I hear from Susie about her every once in a while. Actors, there are so many over the years who were terrific. You, for one.
Well, I wasn't fishing for that. I was waiting for him to get to the end, and then I was going to go, you left Nelson Aspen.
Yeah, so we'll put Nelson on the list.
But you mentioned Colleen Zenk Pinter at one point.
She's
she really can do anything. I actually preferred it when the soaps weren't so camp. I liked it better when she was more of a heroine and less of a mommy dearest.
Yeah.
But whatever, she looks fabulous, and she can act the pants off anybody else in her scenes.
She's a great person.
Is she? I don't know her.
Dinner with her the other night. She's one of my favorite people in my life. Yeah, I love her. Yeah, and what she's done with the cancer, with the I mean, that's courage and strength.
And she's a cougar. She's a cougar.
Yeah.
All right. Just get anybody else that strikes your mind. I just want to get a little bit of last minute dish in here.
Who
you're loving? Your last gig at Young and the Restless, is there anybody that you wish you had more time to write for so?
Young and Restless was very interesting for me because I was so hands-on, being a head writer all the other shows and always being in the studio and with the group and with the actors. Young and Restless, I did in my underwear from home, nice. On the laptop, and I never went in there once. I knew some of the people, but I never had anything to do with the show. It was a very unusual, interesting, weird kind of situation. You don't really feel the distance, the email connection and the phones and the phone calls and you're talking to the producers and everything, but it was like, oh, how odd, I'd never done this before. That was kind of weird.
Well, Thom Racina on the state of daytime, past, present, and possibly future. We thank you for coming in and chatting with We Love Soaps, who are great admirers of yours. I'm honored to get to chat with him, and we'll see you again next time. A big thanks to Roger and Damon.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.